Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. Back with some more vibe for all you. So, somebody, suggested I man check this out and react it for them thing, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm going to do. Before I go on, how you all doing out there, man? I hope you're all doing all right. Taking care of yourself, staying safe in these crazy times, you know what I mean? Because not only just have a lot of crazy people out there not caring about other human beings, we also have a medical situation going on around the world and thing, and I hope everybody's staying okay. I sure hope you're all taking care of each other. Main thing. We all we got. That's it. All we have is a human being. I know you guys got pets and and you love your dogs and your cats, but if you drop down sick, your cat is not gonna drive you to the hospital. You see what I say? If you're choking, your dog is not going to give you CPR. It's another human being that's going to do that. So let's please respect each other and treat each other cool and thing, all right? I'm not going to carry on too much. Let's get into this one here. This one is Georgia, now Philippines. Thank you for suggesting that for me. Let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer.
If you don't know anything about Asia, the Philippines is like the jolliest of them all. They're just happy, fun, jolly people. And
you know what? It's been 3 years. I'm not taking this anymore. I've been pushed around, I've been threatened, I've been thrown in the dungeon, I've been the butt of all the jokes. I'm the Filipino one. This is my time.
My time?
Ah! Welcome to the Philippines. My turn.
okay. It's time to learn geography.
No! Hey everyone, I'm Ken, and as you know, I'm half Filipino. Years ago, I was looking for a job and I saw this ad asking for a motion graphics animator on Craigslist. Paul and I literally met up at a Jollibee for my interview. He said I was his top 3 candidates.
In reality, there were only 3 candidates that applied, so technically I didn't lie. But yeah, the other 2 people kind of sucked, so yeah.
Oh, and back then, I had this weird mustache and Paul's hair was basically this thing.
Ken and I have been talking for a long time, and we agreed Ken definitely has to be in this episode. You've come so far from that Craigslist Jollibee interview. You've earned this.
Thanks. Handa na? Magsimula. The Philippines is an interesting country because there's sort of a dichotomy between labels. If you ask a Filipino if they consider themselves Asian or Pacific Islanders, you might get contrasting answers.
What do you consider yourself, Ken?
I always thought Pacific Islanders sounded kind of cool, so I usually stuck with that.
Ah.
So first of all,
The Philippines is a tropical archipelago of over 7,000...
Must be nice to choose one. I got no choice. I can't choose between Icelander and African. Must be nice to go Filipino, Asian, or Pacific Islander. Which one? That's kind of interesting, though. You know what I mean? But then again, okay, where I'm from, you could call me West Indian, Latin American. It's all labels though. So we could distinguish each other, I guess. You know what I mean? So people are gonna know. Why do they need to know that? Why can't we just be human beings? And then people are proud of where they come from, and then the pride calls nationalism, and nationalism, you know what that causes? People stop acting human.
islands, about
let's go.
2,000 of which are inhabited, and it is the largest island nation without any land borders or shared island territory with another nation.
the country is located in Southeast Asia, straddling the Philippine Sea in the north, the South China Sea in the west, and the Sulu and Celebes Sea in the south.
Just a skip away lies the island of Borneo, which is split amongst 3 nations, at the closest point only about 22 miles or 40 kilometers away from the nearest island that belongs to the Philippines.
Now, in general, many people will refer to one of the 3 main island cluster regions that people are a part of. There are Luzon in the north, where you can find the capital Manila and where the half of the population lives, Visaya in the center, and Mindanao in the south.
Otherwise, the nation is made up of 17 regions, one of which is autonomous, the Bangsamoro
Wow.
Autonomous
So
Region of
it's just
Muslim
a bunch of
Mindanao.
little
This
islands.
place has a high level of self-rule and autonomy appointed by the government. We'll explain more about this later.
If you want to be absolutely technical, Quezon City, a bit north of Manila, is the largest city in the Philippines. However, the surrounding 16 towns and cities by Manila are called Manila Metro, or the National Capital Region, and they basically act as one unit.
Otherwise, the largest city outside outside of the NCR are Davao City in Mindanao and Cebu in the Visayas.
Manila has the largest
look at
and
that
busiest
beach.
airport, Ninoy Aquino International Airport, which is basically the hub that services the entire NCR. They also have the busiest shipping port at the Port of Manila.
Otherwise, the second largest airport is Cebu Mactan International, and rounding out for third place is Davao City Francisco Bangoy International.
In terms of land transport, though, the Philippines is well connected amongst the islands. In fact, the longest highway is the Pan-Philippine Highway that stretches about 3,500 kilometers across the country and connects Luzon, Samar, Liet, and Mindanao with underground tunnels connecting them.
Finally, the Philippines has only two territorial disputes: the state of Sabah in Malaysia on North Borneo. The territory once had been part of the Sultanate of Sulu, a Muslim state that existed the 15th century to the 20th century, and that's a whole other
Wow.
story.
As for the others dispute,
They have a
as
long
we mentioned
history
quite
there.
a few times already, this whole area known as the Spratly Islands is a complete mess. If you don't know anything about this place, it basically goes like this.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. This is the map showing what everyone claims in the area. This big one right here
Wow.
is China's. Like, yeah, they just kind of pretty much went for all of it.
This has even led to a few skirmishes between nations that have built patrol stations on the islands, and when they spot a ship that gets too close, things can get kind of ugly.
It's kind of like this.
Hey, what are you doing? This is my area.
I'm just doing some fishing and research here, you know?
Why do you have a shovel then? Are you building something? Or?
Well, technically there's no land protruding from this reef, so there's no land claim.
So you're just gonna build your own land.
For research.
Anyway, here are some notable spots of interest:
Fort Santiago,
Magellan's Cross,
San Agustin Church,
Sagada Hanging Coffins,
Aguinaldo Shrine,
Cebu's Philippine Taoist Temple,
Shrine of Mama Mary in Tagaytay,
the Lapu-Lapu Shrine,
Luneta Park,
MacArthur Landing Site,
Bunawi Rice Terraces.
the Malacanang Palace,
Vigan has many historical and colonial buildings,
the various national museums of history and arts,
tons of amusement parks,
and that's not even including all the natural wonders of the Philippines. They have an underground river,
the most amazing, beautiful beaches in the universe.
hills that look like lumps of chocolate.
And there's an island in a lake, in an island, in a lake, in an island.
Huh. We should hang out sometime.
Yeah, when you have 7,000 tropical islands on a volcanic archipelago, chances are things can get pretty crazy landscape-wise. Which brings us to...
You know, I had this thought that I was going to bring up, but the one I was thinking of before, my mind is just going crazy, you know, watching this here. But I've noticed that there's a whole group of people that kind of look kind of similar, because they sort of look Hispanic, native type people that's indigenous to like South America, but then they also look like Asians. And how is that to come about? My theory, I think, is the migrations that's going on. We keep moving around this world so much. Everything is changing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we were moving around long before Columbus discovered this part of the world. You know, so people were migrating all over the place. I mean, there was no discovery. There was always people here, and apparently they said the Vikings came here before them. You know what I mean? So there's just nothing is staying the same. How do we know what? How do we know who is pure what? You know, everything is just mixed up anyway, because we keep moving. You know, back in the day, they moving to find better land, to find, the agriculture stuff, or the richer countries are looking for better ways to trade and to get all the trading and stuff going, you know. So migration, you can't tell me that people doing all this migration and they're not mixing. You know, even if people going to go, oh, that is wrong, you can't mix this one and you can't mix that one. It's going to happen. That's just human beings. You know, I wouldn't say fall in love, but we are attracted to each other regardless to what race or culture or nationality we're from. You know, and I think it's kind of silly to try to keep everything one way. You know, we're going to keep this pure, because it ain't pure anyway. Because if you look at your history and you see all the invasions and all the migrations, ain't nothing pure. We've been around too long for that to be so.
The actual physical land of the Philippines is the biggest treasure you will find here for sure. Anyway, the Philippines lies on the Ring of Fire and is specifically on the tectonic plate named after them, the Philippine Plate.
And about 95% of the land is made up of the 11 largest islands.
The country was essentially formed through the tectonic activity between the Philippine, Manila, and the Mindanao Trenches, the Mindanao being the second deepest in the world.
This makes the country susceptible to small earthquakes and minor volcanic activity.
About 53 active volcanoes can be found in all
Wow.
of these largest islands, except for Palawan. The most famous
That's a
and
lot.
picturesque of these include these three.
See this island here, Camiguin? It actually has more volcanoes than towns on it, 7 versus 5, making it the place with the most number of volcanoes per square kilometer in the world.
Wow.
In fact, the tallest peak in the Philippines is a potentially active volcano, Mount Apo, located in the South Mindanao area.
The country has numerous mountain ranges and highlands that dip into the fertile valleys, the largest range being the Cordillera Range in the North Luzon area, hooking into the Sierra Madre Range on the east side, which feeds the longest river of the country, the Cagayan, that flows into the Cagayan Valley.
This valley, along with the Central Luzon Valley, are the largest arable croplands and produce nearly all of the rice in the Philippines.
The Visayas are known for growing the most sugarcane, whereas Mindanao specializes heavily in
Sugarcane,
coconut and
man.
fruit production.
Back in Luzon, though, you can find the largest lake in the country, Lake Laguna de Bay, which is actually in the caldera of a dormant volcano.
The lake has a weird detached island called Talim and is actually drained by the Pasig River that flows through the capital Manila.
And finally, the country is the heart of typhoon territory. They can come at almost any time of the year. The nation will experience on average about 20 of the turbulent storms annually, which
Wow.
often flood to their many river systems. But yeah, if anything, Filipinos are the most cyclone adapted people on Earth. They're used to it. The water has always been kind of their thing. Swimming, sailing, fishing.
Just not exactly quite diving into it.
Otherwise, the Philippines is one of the 17 mega diverse nations on Earth.
They actually have the largest level of marine biodiversity in the world within their waters and the highest rate of animal discovery on the planet, with 16 new mammal species that were discovered in the past decade alone.
They
Wow.
have everything from
The longest snake in the world, the reticulated python.
the largest fish in the world, whale sharks.
7 of the 8 known species of giant clam are found in the Philippines.
The world's smallest hoofed animal, the Philippine mouse deer.
And their national bird is the largest eagle in the world.
Economically speaking, the Philippines is considered a newly industrialized nation. It is transitioning out of becoming an agricultural-based system to a service and manufacturing-based one. They have like 3 of the top 10 largest malls on Earth.
Ooh, just you wait. I'm taking the top spot soon.
They're one of the fastest growing economies in Asia, and as the 34th largest economy in the world, their GDP purchasing power parity has surpassed the $2 trillion
Wow.
mark.
Basically, the Philippines is definitely becoming a key power player in the world stage. It's like,
We're so rich!
Wealth and prosperity.
someday. For what it's worth though, mining, fishing, and agriculture are strong industries as well. They are currently
Yeah,
the
keep
world's
that
largest
going.
nickel and abaca or Manila hemp producers, and the second largest coconut producer after Indonesia.
Tourism, though, is another important industry, taking up about 8% of their GDP, employing over 3 million people.
And now, food! Now in the Philippines, every region has their own specialty and culinary strange.
Yeah, every dish looks like a fairy exploded.
Lots of dishes you could eat kumakain kamay, or eat with your hands.
Yeah, pretty much everything has rice, and then you're gonna get a lot of grease and salt and vinegar, and a lot of like, I don't care if that looks like it goes there or not, I'm still gonna eat it anyway. Right, Ken?
Yeah, that's Filipino food.
Yeah.
There's really no official national dish, but 3 meals that are well known for are adobo, lumpia, and sinigang.
And in the non-Muslim parts, lechon is a huge deal.
There are also dishes like
Tagalog steak,
tinola,
pansit luglug,
kare-kare,
sigstig,
tapsilog,
balut,
kinilaw.
and my favorite Filipino dish, palabok. Just put some nice little lemon juice on it. I actually got this at Jollibee. If you don't know what Jollibee is, it's like the most popular fast food chain in the Philippines. It's like if McDonald's and KFC adopted a Filipino baby, and they even added spaghetti to their menu for some reason.
Otherwise, Filipinos are dessert experts. They love their ube, ube everything, ube ice cream, ube bread, ube pie, ube cakes.
Oh, they also have like sapin, and cassava cakes. Those are the best desserts in my opinion.
They also have halo-halo, leche flan, turon, bukok pandan, and puto. What'd you call me? If you're either Latin
They all
American
look
or
good.
Spanish, you may notice some of those foods are also found in Latin cuisines. And there's a reason for that.
That's why I like it.
We'll explain that in...
Okay, this is what I remembered what I was about to say. Someone had said that I was watching the German video, did the reaction to, and someone that said they don't show the bad parts, and yeah, but everybody's showing the bad parts. Let's just know they're there, and know not to go there, and go check out the good parts. Let's look at the world from that perspective instead of, like when you're a child and you see everything like, whoa, Yeah. You know what I mean? Because if we keep emphasizing the bad parts, don't go there, this is going to happen, that is going to happen. No, it's there, but don't emphasize it because it's there in every single country. Every single, I mean, I live in America, every single state, there's the good parts, there's the bad parts. Why? Is the good parts only that rich people should know they're there? And poor people should just know about the bad parts and live there and just be happy there, you know? Let's look at the good stuff for a change, you know what I mean? This world is just full of not so good things happening. And everybody's emphasizing, you watch the news and everything in the news is, and even if it's something good they show, it's based on something bad happening for the good to come about, instead of it just being good. Like I always say, man, I'm going to call my mom Mommy Charles, that's what we call her. Mommy Charles always say there's good people all over the world. You just have to pay attention and you're going to see them, because they never really step forward. Because the bad people make the most noise, and I guarantee you they're in a minority. Well, that's a strong statement, but I gotta believe that because I'm one person that all about the human. Let's continue, enough babbling.
Now, only in the Philippines can you find people that have Spanish names, speak English, celebrate an Austronesian culture, and cook Chinese.
General MacArthur once said, "Give me 1,000 Filipino soldiers and I will conquer the world."
Yeah, for some reason, Filipinos are like the best friends of Asia. Filipinos still have the best attitudes and smiles. They even give time off felony sentences if the prisoners volunteer to take part in a Michael Jackson dance performance to the public.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, the graph. The country has about 110 million people and
Wow.
is the 8th most populated country in Asia and the 12th most populated country in the world.
There are about 175 ethno-linguistic people groups in the Philippines, the majority of whose languages are Austronesian.
Of these groups, the largest ones are the Tagalog at about 28%, 13% are Cebuano, 9% are Ilocano, and 8% are Bisaya. The rest are made up of other groups plus a small minority of non-native citizens, mostly Asians and Americans.
It's important to note, though, that the Philippines has about 10.2 million people overseas worldwide. It is one of the largest diaspora populations, spanning over 100 countries. The US alone has about 4 million.
I mean, they were at one point colonized by the US, so go figure.
They use the Filipino peso as their currency, they use the types A, B, and C plug outlets, and they drive on the right side of the road.
Oh, and keep in mind the word Pinoy is synonymous with something that is Filipino. You might see that used a lot.
Now back to the ethnic groups thing. Since there are over 175 of them, you would think, how do they all communicate?
Well, the Philippines has two official languages. English, which makes them the 5th most English-speaking nation on Earth, and Filipino, which is the standardized version of Tagalog. The Philippine Tagalog language spoken today is a very different from pure Tagalog. It actually has about 14% Spanish, 10% Malay, and 7% English mixed into it with a slew of other borrowed loanwords.
Sounds
you can
like
see the
patois
influence
in the
words
Caribbean.
like pintalador, guapo, zapatos, and familia. Often, Filipinos will substitute an F with a P.
Or a V with a B.
Or a V with a B.
Yeah, same with Koreans, actually. Yeah. High five with minimal consonants!
Yay!
Oh, and fun fact, Ken taught me this. In Tagalog, you can actually say an entire conversation just using the syllable ba. For example,
Ba, ba ba, ba ba, ba ba ba, ba 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 ba, ba 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 ba, ba ba,
ba, ba 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 ba.
ba ba ba.
Well, that was fun. Otherwise, in the Visayas and Mindanao area, Cebuano is a common language, as well as the other regional tongues like Waray and Daboeno.
They even have the only Spanish-based Creole in Asia, Chavacano, located in Zamboanga City. Now, the Philippines is unique in that over a past few centuries, they've gone through 3 periods that shape their identity.
Before European intervention, the Philippines has had a multitude of early civilizations that built kingdoms and dynasties like the Tondo, the Namayan, the Pangasinan, and the Sulu Sultanate.
Many of these kingdoms had their own indigenous writing system, such as the Babayan, Buhid, Eskayan, and Kulitan.
Genetically, Filipinos are classified as belonging to the broader Austronesian people group, with their closest cousins being the Micronesians, like the Mariana Islanders, Guam, and Palau.
Although over the years, many people have mixed, and today it is speculated that somewhere around 1/5 or more of the population may have some kind of Chinese ancestry. After the Spanish came in, they adopted many of the customs, traditions, and cultural traits which have Spanish roots. Their own country is named after Spanish King Philip. The biggest trait, though, would be the fact that they are predominantly Catholic, at about 81% of the population adhering to the faith.
The rest are mostly Protestant, with a small Muslim minority in the South Mindanao area.
The Philippines is the largest Christian nation in Asia, 5th largest Christian nation on Earth, and 3rd largest Catholic nation after Brazil and Mexico.
They have
Wow.
so many holidays and festivals devoted to Catholic themes, like All Saints Day,
Same thing on
Holy
my
Week,
island.
Easter, and of course, the largest one, Christmas.
The
Yep.
Philippines has the longest Christmas season out of anywhere else on Earth.
Okay, so now we're just gonna rapid fire a list of 12 fun cultural facts for the Philippines.
Filipinos
Yeah.
have a ton of superstitions. For example, whistling at night will turn you into a werewolf.
For formal occasions, you may see Filipinos wearing traditional barongs for men and Maria Clara or mestiza dresses for women.
There are many other traditional costumes and customs for the other 170 ethnic groups. Too many to cover, but it goes everywhere from feathers, coconut fibers, hair dresses, tribal tattoos, and so on.
Speaking of which, the Philippines dominates major international beauty pageants with a grand total of 15 victories at the Miss Universe, Miss World, Miss International, and Miss Earth competitions.
Basketball and boxing are the most popular sport by far. They have the oldest basketball league in Asia and the second oldest in the world after the United States. And come on, we all know Pacquiao.
The Philippines is the leading nation to train and export nurses abroad. It's been said at one point, every Filipino has their should I just drop everything and become a nurse moment in their life crisis.
That's a fact. I've had those. And the word balikbayan means returner or returning family. It is used when someone comes back from expat work abroad.
You might hear the honorific title of po or opal for elders, and a lot of people often raise the backs of the hands of their elders to their forehead as a sign of respect and say bless.
In the Philippines, you have your name and you have your Pinoy nickname, and they get really weird and creative. Pepsi, Bing Bong, Jelly Boy, Pinky, Bum Bum, and Earl.
Every Filipino on every island in every region can tell you Filipinos are obsessed with karaoke. The first karaoke machine was
Given nicknames, it must be an island thing. Because I went to school with people never knew their real name. And they have strange nicknames. Like Smakaruti. Roach. And I know I shouldn't say this word up here, but you know, do we say it on the island? I got two friends. One was named Shitty and one was named Shitter. Don't know how they got the names and don't want to know. But everybody had a nickname. I had a million of them. Tall, Thin, and Terrible. Evo Stick. Bamboo in Pants. Spider-Man. Bionic Boy. What else they used to call me? Scarecrow. Stick. Tall, Thin, and... I could go on and on. I had a million nicknames. But it must be an island thing. Because I have a hard time remembering, like, given names. But I know your nickname.
actually patented by a Filipino, Roberto del Rosario, even though some Japanese dude invented it, but he patented it.
Obviously, that means music is a big deal in the Philippines. Besides taking modern cues from American pop, they also have traditional styles. Instruments include things like gudyapi, kilitang, gimbal, kubing, and togali.
In addition, there are many different styles of dance, but the most famous one considered the national dance is tinikling, a dance done between two pairs of perpendicular bamboo poles
I've
that
seen
are
that
clapped
done.
together as percussion tools, and the dancers must weave their feet in and out in the spaces before getting hit or tripped.
Now, on a bit of a more objective note, we do have to talk about some of the controversies.
The Philippines is beautiful, but if you've been keeping up with current events, they do have their fair share of issues that have made headlines. We don't sugarcoat everything here.
Human trafficking, whether into the sex industry, slavery, or organ smuggling, has been a problem in certain areas. And even though anti-trafficking acts have been passed by the government, enforcement has not always been on par.
The drug trade has also been a major inconvenience for decades, affecting millions of people in the country. This has led to the new controversial laws instituted by President Duarte, which encouraged the public to seek bounty in exchange for hunting down drug pushers. Many have died in the process.
And finally, you have the Moro conflict, an insurgency in the predominantly Muslim Mindanao region, which sought to take parts of eastern Malaysia and break away through conflict. The fight has been going on for nearly half a century, and now it's just ending at the turn of the 21st century.
Kind of.
For what it's worth though, in the Philippines, everyone is family at the end. You don't have to be related to anyone to call someone ate or kuya. There's even a word, bayanihan, which means something like helping one another through community spirit without expecting anything in return. In any case, we gotta finish off this segment with history.
Austronesians.
Tribal kingdoms and sultanates.
This guy came to the islands.
Catholicism comes in.
Lapu-Lapu and Magellan dies in battle.
5 Spanish dudes followed through.
They finally become a colony of Spain.
The galleon trade.
British Philippines.
And then back to Spain. The Treaty of Paris.
Philippine Revolution.
The Spanish-American War.
First Philippine Republic. Philippine-American War.
American occupation.
World War II, Japan invades.
American pushes them back.
Finally, Philippine independence.
Ferdinand Marcos turns from president to dictator.
Martial law.
This guy gets killed because he was against the regime.
People Power Revolution in 1986.
Growth from agricultural society to an industrial one.
And here we are today. And now we finish off with the notable famous people condensed. Some famous people you guys, the Pinoy geography suggested we mention in this episode include
Lapu-Lapu.
Jose Rizal, these two saints,
Melchora Aquino.
Manuel L. Quezon,
Lacan Dula. Josefa Yanes Escoda. And Vicente Lim.
Carlos Peña Romulo.
And all the Miss Universe winners. And there's a ton of Americans with Filipino or partial Filipino descent.
Yeah, you can see there's lots of American Filipinos. Those two get along pretty tight.
We'll explain more on how that happened in... the long history in the Philippines being colonized by two major Western powerhouses, it would make sense that it would have ties with the outside world in many different ways.
For friends, the Philippines is generally close with all the ASEAN nations and does great business with them, particularly Indonesia and Malaysia, their closest neighbors.
The Marshall Islands, Palau, and the federal states of Micronesia are all cousin countries, many of which have Filipino migrants in them, and they all share the same history of being former US territories and US influenced states.
Of course, Spain will always be in the back of their minds as the former colonizer that they gained much influence from. Although Filipinos are not considered Latino, the Spanish and many Latin Americans kind of see them as like the adopted Asians that totally fit in their family. It's like, come on, you're Catholic, you eat flan, every fifth word you speak is Spanish, you're basically one of us.
Interestingly enough, the relationship with Mexico has historically been always strong. The Philippines was ruled under a Mexico-based viceroyalty of New Spain. The Manila galleons were Spanish trading ships, which for 2.5 centuries linked the Philippines with Mexico across the Pacific Ocean, making 1 or 2 round-trip voyages per year between the ports of Acapulco and Manila. And Mexican traditions were brought in like the Day of the Dead and Champorado.
When it comes to their best friends, however, most Filipinos would probably say, even though colonial years were a little bit bumpy, ultimately the USA and South Korea.
South Korea was one of their closest best friends from the 20th century on. World War II really bonded with them after the Japanese occupation years, and they supported each other diplomatically.
Koreans are the top #1 tourist demographic that visit the Philippines. Koreans kind of admire the fact that even though they were both influenced by the US, Filipinos speak better English, whereas Filipinos practically obsess over Korean products and media.
Us.
That's why we're...
For the USA, ties were close ever since they became their colony in 1898. The US also had the largest number of overseas Filipinos at over 4 million, most of whom live on the West Coast states like Hawaii and California. They are one of the oldest Asian partners of the US, they have a mutual defense treaty, and they are the largest export partner and second largest import after China.
American pop culture dominates much of the youth influence. Hollywood studios love filming there, and Gallup polls have shown that the USA is favored on average by over 90% of the people asked, making it one of the most pro-American countries on the planet. And Ken, you take the conclusion.
In conclusion, if you enter a room full of Asians, you definitely know who the Filipinos are. While everyone's so uptight, we're the ones singing karaoke and somersaulting. You could just feel the energy of a Filipino. There's a touch of Latin flavor with American pop undertones. But in the end, no matter what island, you're immediately considered part of the Pinoy family.
Ken, you're one of my best friends. I love you, man. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks. Stay tuned. Poland is coming up next.
Yep, that was kind of cool there, man. So it's kind of interesting how the Latin side and the Asian side just mesh there, you know, to make a nice little culture going on over there, you know. And of course with the influence of the Spanish and then, you know, the American influence. A lot of these islands, okay, like for instance, my island, there's Spanish, French, and English influence. You know what I mean? Like for instance, the parishes, of course, St. George's, St. Andrews, St. Mark's, the English influence. But then certain places is totally French, like Montjalou, Sauteurs, you know, places like that have the French influence. You know what I'm saying and thing? And there's some of the Spanish influence there, but that mainly is in the cuisine to a certain extent, but not as strong as the French and the British. But anyway, man, I ain't gonna babble on too much. The Philippines is a really cool place and thing. I mean, do I want to visit? Yeah, because I think the food is kind of interesting looking. But it's an island and it's kind of tropical, like where I'm from. I want to go to big mountains and thing, you know what I mean? I kind of live in a mountain here. I live in West Virginia in America, and it's kind of like the mountains here, you know what I mean? Although it doesn't snow enough, get enough snow. But anyway, keep watching, man. Just click on those videos and keep watching the stuff, you know. I have a variety of videos from different countries and stuff like that. I haven't touched enough of the African countries yet. I'm gonna do that, and I haven't really touched a whole lot of the South American countries yet. That's because those I know a little bit more about because I'm of African heritage and I'm from Central America. But I plan to watch a lot more of the Asian countries too. You know, I'm in an update. You know, it's a quest to learn as much as I can. I'm getting old. I need to know more. Feed me more. Anyway, man, listen, take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.